it used to bother me. Like, after I did Columbia Records and everything, and I've been at Sony for like, my company has been there now, like for like, say it's 7 years at this point, right? At one
Right.
point, I remember getting in the elevator one day, and there's these two younger guys that worked at Epic Records, and they were complaining about their gig. And it kind of pissed me off, because I knew that they're easily making, these guys are probably making, $100,000, whatever a year, because, or whatever. And it's like, and they just like, they're like, complain, like, and we get to the bottom, like, and doors open up. I said, guys, I can't help it. I'm overhearing what you're saying. I said, that you should be like kissing the ground and thanking whatever higher power that you pray to that you have this gig. Do you know how many people want a gig in the record business, And
right.
so anyhow, I could appreciate, the Puffy at the time, being proud of his gig with Uptown Records. But anyhow, to make a long story even longer, so we're moving along. So we're so Rick Chertoff invites me up to have a meeting with him and Tommy Mottola, and they offer me a deal on distribution deal, a boutique label on Columbia Records. And that was a big deal. Like that day, I left that building. And I remember walking through those doors in the CBS building in Black Rock, they called the building in New York, walking to the train station. Like I didn't even call a cab. I had to walk because I couldn't believe what had happened. I was being offered a distribution deal through the biggest record company in the world. Now, here's the thing. Distribution deals were very rare.
Right.
This was like, nope, this was 1989, right?
Right.
I had no artist.
Right.
I didn't have shit. I had
that was my question. What did you present to them for them to give you a distribution deal?
The meeting was so bizarre because Don Iner was the new president of Columbia Records. Tommy Mottola got made the head of CBS. He hired Don Iner. Don Iner came in, took a look around, and got rid of the head of A&R, and he promoted Rick Chertoff, our guy, the producer. And Rick Chertoff brought me in there to have a meeting with Donnie. So we go to Donnie's office, and I walk in. There's Donnie sitting on the desk. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like guy, very big personality, right? And so I turn around, and there's like 9 guys sitting on this big sectional couch, and they all had like the legal pads, right? And so what I found out is that they're from every department, marketing, promotion, and all that bullshit, right? So then I look at Tommy Mottola comes walking through the door, and so introducing, and he goes, "So all right, so let's get on with this, right?" So I go to sit on the couch, like there with everybody. He goes, "No, Chris, come here." And he takes a chair and he pulls it out in the middle of the room, facing everybody. And he said, "Sit here." And he goes, "Why don't you tell us what you've been doing?" And I said, "Okay." So I told my whole story, just as I'm telling you, right?
Right.
And, but I talked about how, I worked, like things like, on holidays, right? All the major labels go home on the holidays, and they're gone for like a month, right?
Right.
That's when I would really lay it on for college radio and alternative and stuff like that. When I told a retailer or a DJ I was going to send them a record, I did it right then and there. I did not wait till I was doing a mailing, right? Because I knew that when I hung up the phone and I put that record out and I put it in that day's UPS, that DJ or retailer was going to get it in 3 or 4 days, and it's going to be like, wow, that fucking guy sent me the record. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's how seriously I took my craft. I was like, I really made it my business become a student of the game. Like Billboard magazine, right? When I came into this gig, I couldn't afford Billboard. I didn't even have a place to live, right? And Billboard magazine was $5, fucking $5, right? At the time, it was a lot of money to me. So I go to a meeting, right? And people always had back issues of Billboard in their office, right? I would scoop them all up and put them in my bag, right? And I'd take them home. And it didn't matter. Didn't matter if it came out a year and a half ago. I would read it cover to cover because I wanted to know, because here's the thing. I would read something cover to cover. I would read something about somebody when they're working at this company, what they did there. You know what I mean? And I was really into finding out who was at what label and who was doing what, right?
Right.
Made it my business to know the business I was getting into. You know what I mean? And that's the whole thing. I think that, you know, like the one thing that my partner Joe and I that we kind of surmised amongst ourselves, it was two things. It's like, let's not be the guys that, like, you know, when you're in the room and when you walk out of the room, everybody goes, you know what I mean? Like, it's we wanted to be advocate. You know, we didn't want to rip people off. We didn't want like any of the bullshit the surrounding, you know, labels and everything. And there was a the Wu-Tang Clan was on Hot 97 in New York. I think it was Ebro show, right?
Right.
And not all of them, but there was at least 7 guys there, and they were talking about all the different labels, and it came up because of the whole thing of Tommy Silverman and De La Soul, and they were talking about, you know, finally Ebro said, "Is there any label that where doesn't have a problem and the artists are like blah blah blah?" And I think it was Jizza from Wu-Tang said, "Yeah, there's Rough House Records." He goes, these guys actually give a shit about the artists. I had lunch with Karis one day, and he said, "You know what, man?" He goes, you know how people look at Rough House? I said, "Yeah, please tell me. I'm Twinkie who can't taste myself. I'd like to know how I taste." And he said, people think you guys are the hardest label to get signed to, but if you do get signed to the label, because here's the thing, we never done a record where we never had an artist where we didn't do at least 2 records, right? That was unheard of at the time, right?
Right.
So you know, we and the other thing that Joey and I decided was that that, you know, we call things rap tracks. It's a track. I got a new track. The track. You know, you only hear civilians calling them rap songs, but here's the reality of it, right? They are songs. Doesn't matter. It's got to be structured. I don't care what it is. It could be 5 minutes of Static Kiss over a drum beat. It still has to be structured, and still has to provoke certain like things within somebody. It has to like do all the stuff that you need a song to do, right?
Right.
And I think that where a lot of people get hung up is that, like, they get this. Look, there was a lot of bullshit out there, especially like in the 90s, because everybody, hip hop had 10 years of unfettered growth, right? From 1980 to 1990. And the reason being is that the labels just had their asses handed to them because of the disco shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Labels like Casablanca and MCA and all these companies were inflating their numbers based on disco, because disco was all about, singles and 12 inches and everything. And there was like all these companies claiming gold and platinum on this and everything. And then there was that whole thing that started, I think it was Detroit or Chicago. And there was the backlash, and suddenly all these disco records came flooding back to the warehouses, right? So the labels, right, suddenly decided, after they fired everybody involved in that debacle, nobody wanted to get involved in anything that looked transient, anything that looked like it was 12-inch related, and because of all the bullshit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people looked at hip hop as kind of like a place card, like a placeholder, kind of like a temporary band-aid, because you had the cynicism of punk music, and then you had the disposable functionality of disco happening, right?
Right.
And so hip hop, even though all 3 forms of music started within 13 blocks of each other, hip hop was just kind of this thing where nobody was really sure how to deal with it. They didn't know, is it a floor wax or is it a dessert topping? I don't know, right? It just like, so it had 10 years of not getting fucked with, right? And so